give you my interpretation. There's nothing that prevents the commission from taking any action it chooses on an application that's before it. So when Mr. Goodwin's application comes before you for additional $10,000 for the next suite, the board can take what action it deems appropriate, whether or not we fix the wording. So I just want to be clear on that.
Which will happen next month, correct?
That's our hope.
Okay.
As well as with the facade improvement grant for the whole front of High Street.
And I would think we all look forward to seeing that.
Exactly.
I'm just like
Get rid of those
just trying
margins.
not muddy the water with other things. So now we have a roll call.
Okay.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Absolutely.
Ms. Jiggets?
Most definitely, yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Let me think about it for.
Thank you. Grant approved for $10,000. Okay, you have one last one that you received over the weekend for your consideration, and then we can have the topic discuss whether you want to receive one that was finalized yesterday at 6 p.m. This is for the interior for the Pelican Snowball franchise on Airline Boulevard, and I apologize. Oh, yes, the candidate is still here, and I do apologize to you that these were not presented in order, so you had to sit through our entire meeting. Please forgive me.
I'm not upset.
Thank you. This is an interior build-out of the property that you have previously approved, the exterior facade improvement grant. The total expense is $19,000 as outlined, so the maximum amount for the interior build-out would be $10,000. So with that, I can certainly entertain, and I know the applicant would be happy to answer any other questions. So.
Hey, if we've got money invested in the exterior, let's do the interior.
Is that a motion to approve?
Yes.
And second.
Okay. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lucasberg is absent. Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries $10,000 for the interior build-out grant is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
See you.
Thank you for your investment in the city.
See you when we get open.
Please.
Yes, sir. We'll be there April 1st.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Just so is an understanding that you're bringing this application before us, we have not had a chance to prepare. Could you help us understand why you would want us to consider it today? So
Sure, I'd be glad to. Two things that I'll bring to your attention. First, with the consultation of council and your staff, I have, to give you a heads up, our current applications say that the deadline for submission is 1 week prior to the EDA meeting. Given, I had a lengthy conversation with Ms. Wilson before her departure last week, and given the progress with this program, given the interest in the program, given the volume of applications we are now receiving, given how robust it is, she and I, regardless of her departure, made the recommendation, came up with the decision that we would like to extend, we would like to allow more time for staff to do their due diligence and to change the application due date to 3 weeks prior to the EDA meeting. I have consulted with council, and that is an administrative change. It is not a matter that, in his opinion, feels it needs to be brought before the full commission. I did run it by individually the chair and the vice chair, and I think I have their blessing on that as well. So just to let you know, we are going to move forward with modifying those applications this afternoon and reposting them online, and I'll take the opportunity here to let Ms. Laris know, since she will be submitting another one for the property she and Mr. Goodwin are working on, that we are going to be changing that to 3 weeks prior, which means a week from today, for anything to be considered at the November meeting. And especially in light of the fact that Dr. Patton is going to be recruiting someone from elsewhere from the city to work with us to market this program more aggressively than we have been marketing it, by distributing brochures and information and applications on a door-to-door basis between now and the end of the year, in order to make sure that we do all of our due diligence and that we consult on a one-on-one basis with the applicants and make sure that all questions are answered in advance of the meeting. I am going to proceed with changing those, so I share that with you now. And I think Ms. Laris, who has been actively involved, has a comment or question.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I won't take too much time, but I just wanted to bring up a few things. I have been working with Toy from the very beginning on that. One of my projects 6, maybe a couple are in her plaque that
Yes,
she
they are.
received. And from the very beginning, when the grant first started, I personally took this grant around downtown and canvassed your businesses door to door, because I thought it was a great program, and I had nothing in it at that point. I just wanted people to know about it. Particularly Cafe Europa, you were talking about that earlier. There is a sentiment that this grant application is very difficult and lengthy. A lot of people are not doing it because of that misconception. And I've had that experience. I can't get that grant through there unless I know somebody who knows how to get it written and goes through the myriad of things that are needed. A lot of times you need all of that, particularly these large FIG grants, you need everything. But when it's an awning replaced or something like that, the time that it was going to take them to put that grant together and figure out how to do it, as unbelievable as it seems, people will not do that. So I ask you, when you consider the grant application, FIG grant, maybe streamline it towards certain aspects of it so these folks will step up and do it. Because they perfectly know good and well you're giving them half the money for that awning replacement. If that awning is $2,000, the city is literally going to reimburse you for half of that when you're finished. And to think that that opportunity isn't taken because of how difficult it is to put that grant package together. I don't know the answer for that, but that is the truth, because I have been told that over and over.
I'm sorry, speaking out of turn.
No, please, I thought this was connected to the application that was being presented, so I just wanted to make sure we got through that.
From the folks that you've talked to, have any of them actually tried to submit a grant and had difficulties, or is that just what they're thinking or they're doing?
They're thinking and hearing. They're thinking that that is a perception, quite honestly. And
I don't know if we consider a fake perception.
Yeah.
no, I know, but I just want you to know that's specifically why certain folks won't do it. So I would just, when you revisit that. Also, looking in the big picture, and of course, I'm sure Tony does thank you for that grant on 306 High Street, but let's say he didn't have anything to do with the other 2 suites, and you do decide that it's per building and not per suite. What if you had 2 really great national companies decide to come in and they would like to take those 2 spaces? You would have to say, I'm sorry, it's per building, we don't have any money for your build out.
No, that's actually not true, man.
Okay?
Because what we've done is we've left the door open.
That's what I'm saying, I'm just asking you to consider that
Yeah,
possibility.
we're setting a
Right.
precedent, which I think is gonna be dangerous, it's gonna come
Yeah.
back and bite us in the butt later.
Okay, just point of order, we're not on point of order, so can we go back to the application that needs to be presented, trying to understand that?
Okay,
And
sorry,
Certainly,
guys.
if so needed, we can move into a discussion about that.
Oh, I thought we
As
were
a-
And unless
This is new business.
unless the body feels differently, I'm going to again proceed with changing the due date to 3 weeks prior to the meeting, and that may or may not be perceived publicly as making the project more onerous or difficult or time consuming. However, I am your only staff person, and if we keep the deadline at a week prior, I can guarantee you I will not get to it. If I have up to 3 weeks to do it, there is a chance in between going to planning commission and moving our office that I may get to it. I'd like to under-promise and over-deliver rather than over-commit and under-deliver, so.
Help you in all those.
Mallory, I just want to say thank you. Tell me your name again.
Rebecca Laris.
Ms. Laris, I want to thank Ms. Laris for her feedback, because at the end of the day, she's on the streets
Yes.
and she's having conversations, with the business community. So I appreciate you giving us that feedback that we can certainly bring to the table and take into consideration going forward.
If we could just continue with
So,
the agenda as it is for now.
there was an application that was submitted. It did meet last Tuesday's deadline. Ms. Wilson reviewed it. She deemed it incomplete because there were some questions relative to the details on the pricing, specifically because the landlord is a contractor and will be performing a portion of the work. And she notified the applicant on Friday morning or midday that it was not going to proceed and that additional information would be necessary. The applicant reached out to me yesterday morning. I sat with representatives of the representatives of the owner yesterday late afternoon and early evening, and it's for a facade improvement grant that they have now are suggesting or are presenting it in a fashion whereby it would be two applications. One would be the one for your consideration if you care to see it today. That does not have any questions about the costs, and basically the applicant would come back next month with more with a second application that would have the opportunity to clarify those expenses and those costs. It is, and you all will have to tell me whether you want to,
Well, my question
see
would
it or
be,
consider it.
what is the staff's recommendation? Should we consider it today?
I would recommend consideration of it with one clause, and that would be there is still a small piece in here of it's a total application of $11,555, some of which would mean half of that, or roughly $5,500. Some of this is the resurface of the fountain and installing of the new pump would be done by the contractor that is affiliated with the landlord, as with the exterior painting, and my recommendation would be approval conditioned upon the building official, with whom I could not consult yesterday, document or bless, as we've done before, anytime there's a relationship between the owner and the contractor, that these expenses are normal and customary. Separate and apart from that, the applicant has the option of coming back next month with another application, because again, this facade improvement grant is $25,000 per property, and you can do that in 1, 2, 3, 10 applications.
So you believe
that's
it's
my.
important for the commission to review this today?
I think it's worth your consideration.
Why do you think it's important for us to review today?
Because for part of the perception that's at their time is that, we have a perception that apparently this is arduous and time-consuming and painful, and if there is a way that we can do something to be accommodating, when there was an application in and there was an opportunity to split it up so that any questions could be deferred to another time, and instead present the portion of the application that is complete and whole.
So then you're actually saying that the applicant has brought to the table all they need to, the rest of it is the in-house with the building?
Correct.
Okay.
Would be an in-house opportunity
Okay.
for the staff to review the costs that are being performed by a affiliated contractor.
Just a point of clarity, we can review this if we have a tremendous amount of question, we can choose to defer this, correct? If we look at it and say we've got a number of questions that we want to have answered,
Yes,
we can, I'm agreeing, look at it.
Let's look at it, let's look.
And we do have Representative Stephen Woodward from the ownership here with us, and what you see before you is a application. If you go to page 5 for, again, $3,000 for exterior paint, $3,555 for resurfacing and striping the parking lot, which is considered hardscape, resurfacing the fountain, installing a pump and a filtration system, which is $5,000, which is also considered hardscape on those checklist items of what can be incorporated in the facade improvement grant. The total amount here is $11,555, so you would be looking at a grant equal to half of that. And then if and when the applicant chose to ever come back, they would have the window between whatever $5,500 is from the $25,000 that would be eligible for another, $16,000, $17,000.
One question, this property, is this the,
Yes, this is yes, good question. This is, what property is this? This is 600 Crawford Street, which by some folks has been known as the Flash Cube building, for those of us who go far enough back to remember what a Flash Cube or cube was, flash was on a camera. It is where the Wells Fargo Bank will be moving into the ground floor lobby. You may recognize this property in that it did come before you a year or so ago for some improvements that the applicant was approved, did not do any of the work, and the time ran out. Circumstances have changed, and now the applicant is in a position to proceed with improvements, and in fact is doing both the exterior, is doing this exterior work and any exterior work you may consider at a later date, not only because they have a ground floor tenant, but also because they have some month-to-month tenants elsewhere in the building who may or may not renew their leases, and as a result, obviously, the building needs to put its best forward on the facade and look attractive and presentable in the event that they need to market to new tenants for the office space upstairs.
One question for you would be, this is a building that has submitted a facade improvement grant. I think the fountain was a part of the budget last time as well.
It was. And all of, excuse me, that expired,
Yep.
you all did not make any commitment, your monies have rolled back into the program.
Now my question, the only question is if we were to approve this here, and they came back for more facade improvements, isn't the facade improvement program a one-time?
No.
It
So
is
we're rolling.
up to 25,000 per building.
So they can do multiple applications.
You can do
Until you have
25,000.
exhaused it.
Oh, it's even exhausted. the
You can do
full amount.
25 applications,
Correct.
$1,000. You can choose it.
Exactly.
Understood now. Thank you.
Is there anybody here on that?
Yes.
Stupid question, who owns the building?
Justin Verville.
Is there a motion?
Yeah.
I move for approval.
Yeah.
Second.
Contingent upon the building.
Contingent upon staff review, all necessary reviews.
Yeah.
Okay, who
I
did
did
the
the
first?
motion.
Okay, fine.
I think we should decide.
You're going to claim the second, So, we have a first and a second, which is to approve the facade improvement grant up to half of the documented costs, pending the building officials sign off that those expenses that are affiliated with the contract with the disability, the ownership are in good standing, normal customary business practices. Okay, Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggins?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Abstain.
Okay, and,
Communicate with council.
okay, Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0, 601.
Okay, I just have a question. So when you abstain, do you have to give the reason or you don't have to give the reason?
Generally, put the reason in the
Yeah,
minutes.
we can put in the record that the
What is
vice
the
chair,
reason?
the vice chair has had
Prior
business
business
dealings with
dealings,
Mr. Berman.
Oh, okay.
So at this
Duly
point,
noted.
would, I just close my agenda
No
now.
closed session,
Correct.
closed agenda items.
Oh, if I may, just to let you all know, the property on Effingham that you sold to the developer for Dollar General, the store is now open. 7-Eleven is not yet open, but will be soon, but that business is now open.
Fantastic.
All right, so I would just ask that we move the agenda item for our next meeting to have something to understand the interior build-out grant and clarifying that prior to reviewing applications at the next meeting.
Would we want to make the board's wish clear regarding which direction we want to go to include suites, or are we going to ask to be per property, so that way our language is consistent?
Well, my recommendation, until we actually have time to have a good work session with it and not feel like anybody's pressured, is to perhaps consider Ms. Jigga's recommendation that we would grandfather any for this property under the intent that was provided by, we'll say for staff for this point, until we can properly consider it. I think that would be a smart move that would protect us rather than rushing to put us in a bind for something, and then we can determine when we can have a work session to actually figure this out. It may be we have to table it till we do our normal work session, but it would allow us the opportunity. I think we should move forward with it because I think it's an appropriate property. I think it'd be great to do it, but we need to be really clear that we're not doing something against setting an improper precedent or putting ourselves in a bind into the future.
Right.
I would just add one small thing. My personal opinion would be to add it to ground level suites. If you have multiple, that way you don't get into a 6-story, 7-story building with
Like Mr.
30
Reveals is an
suites.
example that.
Correct, you do an interior build out for every single individual suite there, but more so ground level.
Well, that's why we need to bring it to
And
the
that
work
would need to
session,
be
but,
put into the
Alright,
application
correct.
from,
Right.
right, but that would give us time to get that clarification on that, but we could take some action at our next meeting in regards to the applications that will be presented later in the meeting.
and so, under that guidelines, what does Mallory say when some people come in, say today, and they've got an application,
Be a rush for them, right?
you know,
Yeah,
and
again.
there's a suite,
They're not
you
gonna
see what I'm
get into
saying?
me right now.
again, we just have to,
I think one of the things that you should take into consideration is just the concept of density. You know, I agree with you in terms of ownership, but I can understand how it could be prohibited. So, you know, to move forward is a great idea, but density, that would sort of preclude that office suite concept. You know, it's a 6-story building, everybody has separate suites, we exhaust our budget, we aren't able to really move forward with what we are.
We have to get it into writing, into the grant
Well, yeah,
application.
that's what we're saying.
I think it's
Density, we want to understand, yeah, from that perspective.
well, I think it continues to show that every one of the the commissioners here bring a very unique perspective, and I think it's really done a great job of rounding us out and making us very good. I think that we have healthy discussion, and I think it's important for us to be heard and felt like we're understood. And I feel like that these meetings, we might not necessarily do that all the time. And so I really think we need to look at a work session again for that, to make sure we can really dive into all that, because that's very important. That's very important. Looking at it historically is very important, so we need to put the components in place so that we have clarity on it. We look at predicting things and we don't have these unintended consequences and these future setting precedents that we don't want to have, and they're not going to happen in the typical meeting that we have as our typical monthly meeting, so.
But does Mallory have clarity saying today?
She has,
Do you have clarity, Mallory?
She
If
does.
I come into your office today, and I'm saying I want to do it for individual suites, what are you gonna tell me? What will
I don't
be the
know.
answer? I know, that's what I'm saying, she doesn't have clarity.
The application on page 3 reads, right now, 1 per property. And so until we make a decision on that, to modify the application, unless
that was-
council tells me otherwise.
It'll stand as is.
yes, it has to stand that.
I think I heard the consensus of the group is you'd like to change that to per individual suite on the ground floor, and I think that's the consensus I heard, and I think I heard that, you know, we were gonna come back to you all next month
Vote
with
of
that.
consensus vote.
Well, I just want to be, obviously I'm stepping in as the chair to do this, and I just want to bridle us and be very careful that we don't commit to something today, and we don't set things in place that are going to make it more difficult for us. I think there's a lot, I think there's.
But we gotta have clear instruction from Mallory today, really.
She has the same instruction that she's been operating since the grant came into play. I don't want us to make decisions that are going to limit us in the future. We continue to deal with unintended consequences, and I think that this project on its face, it sounds like everybody says, wow, let's get this project done. Let's find a way to get this project done, but in so doing, we may open a doorway that creates something else. We go, gosh, wish we had taken more time to think about this. In fact, that sounds like what you've said a lot of times, that we don't have enough time, and certainly Mr. Bailey has said the same thing. We need to think these things through a little bit further, so.
Well, what I'm saying is based on the actual application now on page 2, it says suite. So that's why I asked Mallory, are you clear? As if somebody comes in office today, what are you gonna tell them?
She's gonna probably tell them the same thing that should be told all of them, is that all your applications are subject to the approval of the commissioners.
Her answer was she's not sure.
Well, right now, it should be, all of our applications are subject to approval.
Oh, they all are.
Right.
I
Well, she
can't make
knows
any
that part.
recommendation, I mean, I can't, all I can do is tell them what my staff recommendation will be. Everything is always contingent upon this body, and as I
Right,
think
you know that
I
part.
specifically said yesterday is, you know, I can certainly make a guess or an estimate as to how the body might go, but if I knew how you 7 were gonna vote on any given subject, I'd be picking lottery numbers.
And what would you tell Mr. Godwin if he came in today? He asked the same question to Toy, and I think Toy, as we said, she knew the program, and I believe, you know, Mr. Goodwin, or what his name is, when he said per suite, and she said yes, per suite. So, you know, if he came in today and asked you that same question, what would be your answer?
I could suggest one thing, but the only issue is it wouldn't necessarily take into your ground floor recommendations. We need some time to think about a language for that.
Mhm.
If you want to achieve absolute clarity on the per property issue,
Versus per suite, that's on page 2.
you could simply vote right now to delete or property from that language on page 3, which would simply say it's per project, $10,000 per project. And all you'd be voting to delete or property, eliminate that as a limiting factor, and then the construction is, that's what's indicated per suite.
Well, no, we'll have to do some with the verbiage on page 2 also, under purpose. which talks about this.
Could we just eliminate the page,
On page two shows the
language
preference.
altogether and just live with all of what's on page 3 for the time being? And then we can study this at a work session. I mean, would that solve that issue? I mean, it's kind of redundant that we have it in 2 places anymore.
Well,
You have to have the purpose of the program.
why don't we give Jeff an opportunity to go back
Yes,
into his
it's-
office and work with the ideas that he's come up with based on our discussion, and we revisit this thing.
And look at it.
Could I just interject potentially?
I don't want to, I'm going to continue to push not to make a decision on this today. I think we should address it prior to the application being presented at our next. And I love the idea of having council present us with a way to overcome it for now till we get clarity in a work session. So again, I think it sounds like everybody wants to help Mr. Goodwin move forward with the project.
May I ask, with that in mind, specific to 306 High Street, do you or don't you want me to accept any applications, additional interior build-out applications between now and your next meeting? That goes back to Ms. Jiggett's, I think,
Exactly.
concern and question, which I appreciate, because if we do not make the change, if the group does not take more property out, I am limited to being able to say, oh, I can take applications all day long, but as defined, it's for property. The flip side is, and then you all can make any other changes to definitions or to other aspects after time consideration and further discussion.
Please accept more applications, especially for that property.
Well, why don't we follow our attorneys, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Could we not at least accept the attorney's recommendation, remove the or property for the time being, and then he can bring us back in 30 days a substantial modification that addresses everybody's concerns?
You're going to crush Mr. Goodwin, him moving forward.
No, the
If you
removal
don't
or
grandfather him
property.
in, if you grandfather him in, you don't crush him.
No, if I could clarify, removing or property makes it on a per project rather than per property basis, so Mr. Goodwin's problem would be solved by
And that would
amending and
Fair point.
eliminating
And I
or
could,
property.
I could
Please
open
accept
up
the
an
application.
application all day long. I could accept those applications all day.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to remove the word property or from our existing bylaws and substitute with project for the time being until our next meeting.
No, that motion is not enough, because on page 2, it speaks to suite, so.
All
you need
verbiage.
all verbiage,
So-
not just page 3, but page 2 also, under the interior build-out grant. Under the second paragraph, beginning with vanilla shell space.
How about if you strike the words of either or new existing building or suite in which the limited
Yes,
tenant
you gotta do
improvements
something with
generally,
that,
and have it
because
just read, the interior condition consists of heating, cooling, and delivery systems, lighting, electrical switches and outlets, lavatories, and finished ceiling walls that are prepped for painting, and a concrete slab floor. Jeff, if we just took out this here.
I'm gonna suggest that we not do that at this point, just because I think we're getting into too many amendments without having a chance to look at it. The word either there, so to me.
You gotta take out suite,
Okay, hold on
otherwise.
a second. So if that's not the case, there's a motion on the floor that has not been seconded. So either it needs to be withdrawn or it needs to
I think it
second
needs
or
to be
die.
restated, because you have to deal with that part about existing building or suites.
I just said replace building with project. I didn't matter what page it was on or what
Well, it's on
clause.
page 3 and page 2 about the
So
building.
that goes for both of them then.
Okay, so
Yeah.
just one minute, because I really think Jeff has a lot of wisdom. So I think the more restrictive language is the best language moving forward. I think that because there's confusion, we'll kind of like the tie goes to the runner, that we could make a motion and could act upon it to continue to accept applications on this particular property until clarification can be made, and that the more restrictive language be used moving forward until it's been rewritten.
More restrictive in the sense of one per property.
Yes.
Put the project
So,
in there.
well, in any interpretation, it would be the more restrictive. So, because there may be another interpretation we didn't understand yet that would come into play. So staff would just say, I'm gonna tell you they're gonna defer to the more restrictive language. It's always up to theirs. Bang. Just have to worry about getting into any, that part of it. We give them the green light to continue to move forward, and we didn't tie our hands on anything else. And we haven't changed the language of anything, and we haven't approved changing the language of anything by doing that. So,
How about this, until we really get the study, how about this, they will continue to take, like you said, applications on this property, and we'll study it over the next 30 days, have a discussion.
but the staff would be
Staff would
operating
be good.
on the more restrictive language for now,
Yeah.
So if in,
except for that,
Right.
that project.
And I state, we still have to deal with the verbiage that's in the application now for the public. We have to deal with
We're
that.
not saying that we're not gonna do it.
Well, no, but we have to deal with it on, as I said, on page 2. We have to deal with that because this prospect may not be the only one.
We just said it would be the most restrictive language.
But we don't want to send a misinterpreted message. And we have in writing something here that may not be what we want to adhere to going forward, correct? So when Jeff looks at this for striking purposes, my only concern is that we strike on page 2 also with the suite verbiage, as well as page 3 where you talked about the property. That's the only thing I'm saying. Just as simple as that.
Can you help me understand the concern there with striking page 2?
On page 2 where it says, under purpose, under interior build out, on page 2, then the interior condition of either a new or existing building or suite. The reason we want to take that out is not speaking to the condition, but it's speaking to the fact that the interpretation became an issue because Toy conveyed that the program is per suite. I mean, the program, the money can be used per suite. And that's where she probably was referring to, where she saw that verbiage suite. And that's why the answer was per suite. So wherever in this application, where it lends itself to interpretation under that per suite, we need to fix that as soon as possible.
But is it the board's desire?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
For purposes of getting to next meeting, is it the board's desire? It sounds like it's the board's desire to accept applications on the per suite rule and not the per property rule.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, so,
Well, see, I didn't understand that.
That's what it sounded like when I was sitting here.
that would allow this particular building the opportunity to come back 2 more times if it was per suite, which is what we have been hearing.
But it will also allow other
That's right, that
projects to
means
come back under the first suite too. See what I'm saying? And I didn't think we were trying to do that.
I think that's dangerous because we get the ground, we don't bring in the ground level.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I
I'm
know
saying
you're
it's
not.
too difficult a topic to broach today and to be able to bring to proper conclusion without doing due diligence. And that any change is likely to be a negative impact. And if we use the more restrictive language that's in place now, well staffed, we're using the most restrictive language of our wording right now when it's changing any wording for any applications he receives, except for this one project. It will tell him to do this because of what you keep saying that was implied by Ms. Wilson to do that, to honor the intent of what was done with that, so.
Well, no, not implied, it's actually in here on page 2.
Well, it's
So that's what I'm saying. I know you all are tired of us going round and round, but we have to take into consideration Ms. Butler. She is our face with the public. And if she gives out another of these applications and another prospect sees the verbiage on page 2, and they also say, I have a project with these individual suites, and I will be coming back each time with each contiguous suite. As it stands now, that's what we would have to do. The reason I was saying you might want to change it, we understand, that's why I kept saying about grandfather, Mr. Goodwin in, because going forward, once Jeff and Mallory can get together, that verbiage will need to be changed so that we are not on the hook for the per suite concept, unless we want to be on the hook. And I'm hearing that you don't want to be for the per suite because it could be cost prohibitive.
But your proposal would mean that anybody could come in with an application between now and the next meeting on a per suite basis.
No, my proposal would be so they wouldn't be able to by striking it.
Completely striking the first suite.
Per suite, yeah, taking it out.
Taking only property.
Which is fine.
Yeah, my proposal would be to strike it out on page 2, and then I think Jeff referenced something on page 3. Because if you don't, then people can come in.
Actually, striking per suite would probably allude to what you were trying to explain from the onset. You know, that is
So, I mean, I'm just saying.
per case basis, based on ownership. Like Mallory said, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
pretty much.
The only other problem with that though is like, I forget your name, I'm sorry, but, you know, again, it's very restrictive to our goals, is to bring forth development. And if, you know, if somebody wants to come in and do suite 1, suite 2, and suite 3, we're being very prohibitive in that, so.
So
we
you
may be-
like the person, you like.
I like Aaron's idea of ground level suite, not 2 and 3 and 4 and 10 levels up suite.
So then, if I'm hearing correctly, you like the ground level, which speaks to the contiguous suites concept on the ground level.
Okay, along with the ground level, let's add a little bit, just to narrow your focus here. Maybe we should look at the adjustment from 10,000 maybe to 15,000 or 17,000, some percentage that would represent the multiple suite concept. But we have a cutoff, thereby not depleting our overall funds, our budget, and we can still have the type of coverage that we all are interested in.
The continuation of conversation, very
Well, I
robust,
think it's clear.
only adds to the fact that I believe we need to take this to a work session to address it.
I
And
think
trying
you're
to
right.
address it
A
today
special
is
meeting.
very dangerous for us to do that. Our direction to staff should be
Continue as it is now, is that what you're saying?
continue as it is now, letting applicants know it's the most restrictive the language is.
So we have a right as a commission to approve or deny any
Exactly.
application still. That's very clear multiple times over.
Just to lessen the workload.
We've got to think this thing through. Everybody has valid points that just aren't.
And lessen the workload, understanding the conditions of the staff.
Right, so if you go to the more restrictive language, then
Right, I say, don't
It doesn't
accept
put
any
as much-
more applications, just shut it down for right now.
No,
please,
Then
please
it's
don't
just-
take,
have our
please don't
credibility.
take any comments or my sharing, you know, my limited capacity
Right.
as suggesting anything be shut down.
Mhm.
That is not,
I wouldn't propose that.
that is not the message I want to convey whatsoever. I'm just saying, more time is gonna be needed,
Mhm.
and, because, you know, I'm doing the job of
Of
three,
three people.
Yes,
and
Mr.
moving
President.
our office right now.
Mr. Goodwin has actually raised his hand about 6 times
I was-
now.
I can't see
And,
that, to be honest.
as an end user with the perception that we just heard about, I'd love to hear just a brief comment from him.
Okay.
He's-
Yeah, and historically, you have buildings, the envelope of the walls of the existing building. This building particularly has identified 8 physical addresses at ground level as 8 individual units, or potentially 8 individual units. You have buildings such as the China Garden building, which is 301 High Street, it has 301 High Street, but it doesn't identify the Middle Street addresses on the side of the building as individual addresses, but it's part of the 301 ABCD. You go further down to the Kern building. It's identified and physically identified, the water meter, mailing address, everything. 331 through 341 High Street. And 337 is actually in the middle that handles the 3 floors above on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors. So you have 60% of your buildings on High Street in the original town boundaries all the way out to Chestnut Street. 60% of your buildings are actually multiple addresses on one physical building, because either they've been added onto, or, you know, they take more than one parcel, because the original parcels on High Street, the town was drawn out on 30-foot by 110-foot lots. And each individual parcel was separated as an address. You just had buildings that were built on 5 parcels that ultimately filled 5 addresses. So take into consideration when you're making the justification on how to disseminate how you want to go with this as a build-out, because some buildings will literally have multiple addresses or multiple. I think the facade is envelope related. It relates to one building. The interior build-out to be a catalyst for putting in individual businesses into these suites, which is what your objective is would be related. The caveat to that would be to maybe solve to where it doesn't deplete your funds and consider a cap on how many you take on either a percentage basis based on the number of suites that are in the building, or just simply cap it on the building envelope and say you can only do 3 interior build-out grants. Now that leaves this particular property with the back space still vacant, which, mind you, all of these spaces have been vacant since 2005. So we're sitting here 10 years, no business, no income. So I just want to make sure that you understand that the majority of the buildings in downtown, well, 60% at least, maybe more, will actually have multiple addresses, multiple individual demising units inside of one envelope building, mainly because it falls in line with the parcels that they were originally built on. So I'm just, throwing some clarification out there to you.
Right.
My recommendation was just to simply say, put a cap on it at a percentage of how many buildings. If it has 8, then put 25%. That means you can only do two build-outs in one building.
And again, we have to reinforce this. So, point of order.
It does kind of.
Excuse me, we have a point of order. Mr. Kelly has a motion before the commission that needs to be addressed. So, could you please rephrase the we did not hear it, but I just want to be clear. I guess if it receives no second, it dies, is that correct?
And it can get withdrawn as well or shot down, but all.
Would you want to withdraw it, or?
Yeah, actually, yes, I'm gonna withdraw my motion.
Okay, so is there a motion at this point in relationship to this?
Until we see something with
So we're asking staff to adopt the most restrictive language for any future applications she receives between now and the next meeting. And we're asking staff to bring this as an agenda item prior to applications and getting with council prior to the next meeting, so we can try to have a limited discussion about the best way to overcome this moving forward.
Yeah, I do have one clarification. Is it required for us to take action on this particular property, attorney, since she has exhausted all this money? It is basically a lot of good money with our vote today. Do we need to give a clarification to staff regarding and accepting the other applications of the street? All of them discussed.
We just did, we said any future applications, except for this property.
It's up, it is with.
Okay, I didn't know if we needed to take formal.
Consensus.
I'm just asking if we need to take formal action on that, is what I'm asking.
I think I have consensus and direction that, staff will, your attorney will come back with better language for your consideration next month. In the meantime, I may accept applications for 306 for additional interior build-outs. I'm not making any warrants or guarantees that this body will approve